We've got the best division in football here. Chiefs at Cardinals, Raiders at Chargers, and Broncos at Seahawks. Stephen A., which team in the division will score the most points in week 1?
I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Okay, tell me why.
Justin Herbert, Williams, Keenan Allen.
Okay. All right,
Period.
I guess we got time
Ain't
for
nobody
one
stopping
more.
that offense.
We'll dive in deeper here. Raiders, Chargers. Who are you backing to win this one, Stephen A.?
I don't know. I'm going to go with the Raiders. I'll just go with that
What
right
a
there.
day,
I'll just go with that
everybody.
right
What a time to be
Shootout.
alive. Goodbye.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about this clip from Stephen A. Smith on his new podcast, No Mercy, in which he tries to wade into politics because Stephen A. Smith low-key wants to be a political figure, okay? He occasionally, goes on news talk shows to discuss politics. He's been on Fox News. Maybe he's been on MSNBC and CNN as well, too, but he's definitely been on Fox News quite a bit. Again, he tries to brand himself as some type of moderate guy, right? He's a woke moderate guy, right? That's what Stephen A. Smith is. Okay, and ESPN, I can't lie, they do overwork the guy. Okay, they almost work him to death. They put him on almost every assignment covering every sport when he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, he kind of knows what he's talking about when it comes to basketball and the NBA because that's supposed to be his area of expertise. But clearly when it comes to any other subject like the NFL, baseball, UFC, whatever, Stephen A. Smith has no clue what's going on, right? So we know damn well he has no clue what's going on when it comes to politics, which again is what he's trying to get into. And this take right here that he gave in regards to Tucker Carlson's coverage of January 6th recently with the unreleased footage being released to the public really shows you that Stephen A. Smith is just brainwashed like the rest of the mainstream liberal media in regards to what happened that day, which kind of proves the point of what Tucker Carlson is doing here, which is to add more transparency to what happened to dispel the myths and the lies that were spread about January 6th by the mainstream liberal media. And again, I think that Stephen A. Smith's take on what Tucker is doing here is just really a prime example of why what Tucker Carlson is doing is so important. Because again, you have people like Stephen A. Smith who have no clue what the hell is actually going on, right? He's just ignorant, right? So without further ado, roll the clip.
And I'm flicking channels and I saw Tucker Carlson talking about the insurrectionist from January 6, 2021. And I have to tell you that I got really, really pissed off because he was trying to act like, they only showed, violent protesters as if, but they didn't show the peaceful protesters. And one particular individual, I forgot what his name was. He was wearing horns. Who the hell are you fooling? Who you playing with? Tucker Carlson. You full of it, bro. You're full of it. You know that's not the point. For the record, Tucker Carlson is not wrong when he points out that not every protester was a violent protester. Of course we know that. You had protesters, insurrectionists kicking in windows, kicking down doors. 4 people in the crowd died. 1 officer died. That's 5 people who died. You know what their names are, Tucker Carlson? Officer Brian Sicknick, Ashley Babbitt, Kevin Greason, Roseanne Boylan, Benjamin Phillips. Dead. Dead. Ashley Babbitt was killed by a Capitol Police officer. Her last moments captured from multiple angles on video show Miss Babbitt with a Trump flag knotted around her neck being hoisted to the window as others in the mob shouted.
Yeah, so this take from Stephen A. is so bad for multiple reasons. One, he's missing the whole point, right? The whole point of what Tucker Carlson is doing is to show a different side of what happened on January 6th that the mainstream liberal media isn't showing, because you have people who were locked up from basically taking a Capitol Police approved tour of the Capitol, right? Which I think that, most people should disagree with. That's not right. You shouldn't be locking up people, for example, 4 or 5 years, giving them hard time in prison because they took a tour of the Capitol. They actually weren't violent on that day. Again, you have people who were not violent, who did not commit acts of violence, who literally were let into the Capitol, went into the Capitol, given a tour of the Capitol by the police, that are literally in jail, right? They're locked up because they took a tour. Okay, now again, I think that most people agree the people that are actually being violent that day, yes, they deserve punishment. Okay, but the whole point of what Tucker Carlson put out there was to talk about the people who weren't being violent, okay, and the punishment they receive, okay? Something that, again, you would think that these people who were so loud about police brutality and so-called systemic racism and how unjust the judicial system is, the criminal justice system is, you would think these people will be speaking out when you see a clear, obvious injustice going on in this country, right? A broken criminal justice system, people who are political prisoners, right? They're literally prisoners because of politics, right? They're political prisoners. But again, because they're Trump supporters, apparently they don't deserve the same type of humanity, right? But again, that's the point, okay? The point is not to say that all of January 6th was peaceful, okay? That nobody committed any acts of violence. That wasn't the point. The point was to show that, hey, Democrats, okay, and the government withheld evidence during the January 6th commission that could have changed the public's view on a lot of the key figures that they're locking up, okay, for staging the so-called insurrection. Went right over Stephen A. Smith's head, right? Right over his head. Didn't get it, right? Don't understand it. Don't get it. Because there's this natural pushback when it comes to achieving justice for people who, again, you disagree with politically. Now, the other part of Stephen A. Smith's rant here that shows his ignorance is the narrative about people who died on January 6th or as a result of January 6th. He named 5 people. Brian Signet, who was a police officer, did not die on January 6th. He didn't die from January 6th, in my opinion. Okay, I don't think there's really much evidence to support that. In fact, there was footage of him walking around totally fine, okay, on January 6th. After Democrats claimed that he was beaten to death by Trump supporters, he was walking around just fine. Democrats didn't show that, though. Why they were actively telling you lies, right? Which is something Stephen A. Smith should be much more concerned about than that, being that he's a so-called journalist. But anyways, he didn't die as a result of January 6th. At least there's no proof to support that. Okay, he died of natural causes. You have 3 other people that he named that also died of medical emergencies. One died of a drug overdose. Yeah, and natural causes. So again, none of those people died because of what happened on January 6th. They weren't trampled. They weren't beat to death. They weren't injured. None of that. They didn't die because of that. Only one person died as a result of what happened on January 6th, and that was Ashley Babbitt. She was not a Capitol Police officer. She wasn't a Democrat. She wasn't a politician. She was a Trump supporter. And she got shot trying to enter the Capitol. But see, if the narrative is that, well, only a Trump supporter died on this day that's supposed to be, the worst day in American history since, 9/11 or the Civil War, depending on who you ask, right? The worst attack on our democracy. If you just say that, well, all that happened, you only had one person die, and it was a Trump supporter, I think a lot of people would change their minds. But when you're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8 people dying, some of whom Capitol Police officers, yeah, I think that would make it seem much worse than it actually was. Which is why they said that, which is why they lied. And I'm super curious as to what Stephen A. Smith's take is on BLM and Antifa, since he wants to be involved in politics so much. Right? What do you think about the people who died as a result of the BLM riots? Which were, 30, 40 people across the country died because of that? What is his thoughts on that? Right? Is outraged about the coverage, the slanted coverage on CNN and MSNBC, the liberal networks, about those political riots as he is about Tucker Carlson and what he's showing on January 6th? I doubt it. Again, this fake outrage against Tucker Carlson really kills me. It really does. Because it's showing you who actually believes in transparency and who doesn't. Right? Who's just for the state and whatever the state allows, and who's actually for freedom of the press. Right? Who's actually for freedom of speech. Now, we have, one person that, is not necessarily political, but has got a lot more political that, actually is paying attention to what's going on here and taking away the key point or takeaway from Tucker Carlson in these revelations about January 6th. As Elon Musk has called for the release of the Shaman from prison over his Capitol riot action. So Elon Musk is calling for the release of Jacob Chansley, who is the Shaman, okay, at the Capitol, okay, that was seen being given a tour of the Capitol by Capitol Police, right? But they threw this man in prison. Billionaire business mogul Elon Musk called for Jacob Chansley to be freed from prison on Friday, arguing that the so-called Shaman's actions during the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021 were falsely portrayed. Free Jacob Chansley, Musk wrote in an explosive tweet on Friday. The Twitter CEO and founder of Tesla and SpaceX said it was an issue of fairness of justice as he shared resurfaced footage from the day supporters of former President Donald Trump stormed the Capitol building that shows Chansley, now 35, urging rioters to go home. Quote, I'm not part of MAGA, but I do believe in fairness of justice. Yeah, apparently that's a controversial thing, right? It's controversial to believe that your political opponents deserve fair and equitable treatment in the criminal justice system, right? Apparently that's a bad thing in America in 2023. Chansley was falsely portrayed in the media as a violent criminal who tried to overthrow the state and who urged others to commit violence. But here he is urging people to be peaceful and go home. And the other video shows him calmly walking in the Capitol building, being escorted by officers, and then thanking the officers. Musk added, referencing bombshell security camera footage from inside the Capitol building obtained by Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Yeah. So this guy essentially is in jail for a peaceful protest, right? In jail for a peaceful protest. That's what he's in jail for. He's in prison for that. Again, Democrats, they defend their rioters, okay, and their, domestic terrorists by saying, hey, it's freedom of speech, right? It's freedom of speech for them to do that, even though they actually are committing actual acts of domestic terrorism. Not this right here, right? This is not domestic terrorism right here. In September 2021, Chansley pleaded guilty to one count of obstructing an official proceeding and was sentenced to 41 months in prison that November. According to a timeline of events compiled by the Justice Department, upon which Chansley signed off as a part of his guilty plea, the Navy veteran from Arizona was one of the first 30 rioters to enter the Capitol on January 6th at 2:14 p.m. Through doors that had been busted open from the inside. Yeah, so again, there's footage that's come out of this guy actually telling people to go back, right? To not go into the Capitol, to be peaceful. He basically was let in and then given a tour and then thrown into prison for it, right? So again, Stephen A. Smith completely missed the whole point, okay? He completely missed the whole point because the guy is not as awake as he thinks that he is. Just because he believes that I pay attention to all sides, I pay attention to everything, but he's still brainwashed by the establishment narrative, okay? So I think that Stephen A. should watch a little bit less MSNBC and CNN and more of Tucker Carlson, okay? Because Tucker Carlson does have an anti-establishment slant, okay? I mean, there's nobody else in the legacy media that is anti-establishment like Tucker Carlson, which is why he gets so many viewers, right? And people like Stephen A. Smith need to pay close attention if they're going to be commenting on politics in regards to what's actually going on and the whole point of what Tucker is doing, okay, with this January 6th footage, which is pushing back against the establishment narrative about what happened that day, which is clearly incorrect. I mean, it was just a lie. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.